Hi, I'm Siobhan O Halloran and I'm a former government chief nurse in the Republic of Ireland, and I'm delighted that you're able to listen to me today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the idea of advocacy with and for nurses and midwives, and I'm going to place it within the context of what we're all going through, the current pandemic. So let me place nursing in context, first of all, and this is something that's really important. Nursing and midwifery are inextricably linked, and rightly so, to society's future and to the future of healthcare. We don't, as a profession, exist in a vacuum. We exist in a geopolitical, socio-economic, and technological context, and that has never been truer than what we are going through today. So let's start by understanding that as a profession, we actually sit within an organisation which sits within a health service, and our capacity to change is shaped by that context within which we exist. However, let me reassure you that we are, as a profession, well capable and more than capable of reinventing ourselves over and over again. And if we look back through history and we look to wars, human tragedy, and other things like the current pandemic, we see that nursing has changed over and over again. That's because we sit in society. It's also because we're grounded in some evolutionary principles. We are relevant. We have always been relevant to society, and we always will. We are accountable for our actions. Sure, we're employees, okay, but we're accountable because we have a social contract to care with society. So we always change to meet the needs of society. We are unique. Think for a minute of a world without nursing. Wouldn't it be so sad? We are visible. People see us. Everybody at some point in their lives is going to need the services of a nurse or midwife. And we have a global impact. So you exist in your organisation and you have an impact in your organisation, but you're part of something much bigger as well that has a global impact, and it is there for everybody to see. So I want to talk to you a little bit about developing a strategy for yourselves to be able to advocate for nursing within your organisation. And it's grounded in 4 simple ideas. 1, we set a direction. 2, we ensure nursing is visible and viable in character. 3, we learn how to mobilise commitment. And 4, we learned how to engender organisational capital. So we'll start by setting the direction. Remember, the desired future of the health system and the organisation you're working in doesn't just happen. Leaders, like every one of you listening today, will create it. And as leaders, our most important function is to cultivate the human capital in our organisation. So we must invest in the next generation. And as we look around who we are working with, we will understand that clinicians like yourselves are knowledge workers. And you and those you will lead and those you will manage will respond to inspiration, not to supervision or command and control. We, our younger generations, respond to inspiration. So part of our job, the job of every nurse, is to be an inspired leader and to help create the new future. As we start to create a new future post-COVID in organisations, we will build on our mission and values. Our mission as nurses and midwives has not changed since the foundation of nursing. Our mission is about maximising the capacity of our professions to strengthen the health system and to optimise service provision in the interests of our patients, their families, and our wider community. And our mission is built on the values of critical thinking, critical caring, and critical acting. And remember, we are a very well educated and intelligent profession as we start to move forward. In building that new future and setting a direction, we need to develop a strategic mindset. And there's probably 5 characteristics of a strategic mindset. One is that we remain person-centered. Our job is in service to society. We are not subservient to anybody, but we are in service to society. So our mission will always be person-centered. So stick with being person-centered. The ultimate aim is always to improve services for our patient and their outcomes. Innovation. Be confident to try new methods of working. I have no doubt there is lots of stuff in your organisations that have changed during this COVID era and new ways of working. Be confident and innovative to build on those. Always think to the future. Nursing will exist beyond us today, well into the future. So we need to make sure we're continuously future-proofing our roles to optimise impact for service users. Be outward-looking. Forge external connections to inform best practice in nursing. And by that, I mean outward-looking beyond nursing as well. And Sigma Theta Tau provides a wonderful platform for forging those external connections. Be collaborative in your work. Foster productive relations with your stakeholders and with other partners. And that sums up a strategic mindset. It's very important we understand our external environment in setting this direction. So, on the one hand, you are health service employees. You sit within an organisation. And in that organisation, you have a corporate identity and you also have a corporate responsibility. And that shapes the way in which you can change nursing in many respects. On the other hand, all nurses are leaders who are patient advocates and agents of transformation. It's in the tension of those two functions that you can set realizable and achievable goals for nursing and patient care. So you need to learn to live within that tension because you sit in an organisation. The second feature is the idea of making nursing visible and viable, particularly in relation to its character, and do this by managing for results. So in this idea, there's 2 questions to be asked. What is to be measured and why? What results are you seeking and when? And you can answer those 2 questions by measuring outputs, outcomes, and impact. And really what's important in an organisation is being able to demonstrate and measure the impact of nursing. That's extremely powerful because we have a critical mass of nurses. We have a large number of nurses. And when nurses can do something together, we can really impact on patient outcomes and service delivery. Let me give you an example. In Ireland, we introduced an education programme to enable nurses and midwives prescribe. We introduced the educational programme. The output of that was nurses prescribing. The outcome was nurses wrote prescriptions in one particular labour ward 50 times in one night. The impact of that was patients got pain relief faster. It was more economical because a doctor didn't have to be called. Now, when you can measure the impact of nursing like that, it makes a compelling case for change. Mobilising commitment is about building the commitment within an organisation to give effect to what it is you want to do. And there are some common organisational sort of political with a small p behaviours. One of them is networking. It is extremely important to build a network, and that network needs to go on beyond nursing. If you're trying to affect change, the idea of reciprocity is important. It needs to be a win-win for everybody. So everybody engaged in this change is gaining something. That's the concept of reciprocity. And sometimes that's only about how you describe a change. And the last thing there, or the third one there, is the idea of building strategic coalitions. So you have groups of like-minded people that come together, not just to support you, but actually to drive what it is you need to do, be that yourselves, with medics, with admin, with allied health professions, but you start to build strong coalitions. So you're not on your own trying to achieve what it is you need to achieve. And there's some simple guidelines around trying to develop those type of relationships. One's built on reciprocity, around a coalition, and the idea of networking. And one of them is about the capacity to connect your internal reality with whatever the opportunities and hazards are there in your organisation. I have no doubt that COVID has brought with it a number of opportunities and hazards. And you connect what it is you need to achieve with either of those. Try and describe the impact of making what it is you need to make happen. And then you are building a better case to manage nursing. This is an interesting one. Developing emotionally compelling data and people. So there's a fine balance here between being passionate and being emotional. Being emotional doesn't really get us to where we need to get to. But if we understand that emotion in terms of being passionate about what it is and having the data to support that passion, your arguments become more compelling. We all understand there's always opportunity in crisis and we need to proceed. Be nervous of people that are urgency killers. We need change, and we need big change all around the world, and we need it fast. So we can't be complacent. If we're complacent, our health services stand still and patient care stands still. Learn about the organisational culture, understand who are the power players. And power players are not always the managers in front of you. Reflect on your organisation and try to understand who actually is making the decision, who actually is holding the purse strings, and how can you influence, who influences them or influence them themselves. Develop good working relationships, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. Always be a loyal, honest team player. Gain recognition, speak up, let people know who you are. And once you start to speak from the heart about the values of nursing, people will listen, governments listen. Mobilise commitment is about managing the boundaries. Always remember that nursing is a boundary discipline and it operates on the boundaries of a number of other disciplines. So sometimes when we want to make change or we need to advocate for nursing, it's going to affect others. So we need to build trust. Okay, trust can take a long time to build, but it'll be gone in a blink. So little tips for developing trusting relations are authenticity. You find your own voice and you speak for yourself. Developing the emotional intelligence that you can tune into the emotions of others so you can understand how they're receiving information that you're transacting. Climate building, creating an environment where everybody around you can bring forth their ideas, their values and concerns. There's nothing worse than trying to affect some sort of change and you can't understand what other people around you are thinking. And always walk the talk. Actions speak louder than words. That phrase is as old as the hills, but there's a big difference between espoused values and values in action. And we need to live our values every day. In terms of engendering organisational capital, remember the power of one. As one person, you can't change the world, but every day as a nurse or midwife, you're changing the world of one person. You exist in your ward or in your clinical area, but you're part of a nursing team that exists right across the organisation you're working in. And you exist as part of a profession that exists all around the world. And part of our group's stock and trade is always to affect change, to affect agendas, to affect decisions, to affect how health decisions are implemented. And critical to this in an organisation is your ability to speak with one voice, and for the management that you're working with to understand that when nursing speaks, it speaks with one voice, and you represent the preference of all nursing members in that organisation. That's extremely powerful. In all of this, we have to look after ourselves. You have to look after yourself first before you can cater for other people and give everything you need to your patients. So the idea of building strategic resilience in each one of us is critical. I suspect it's never been more critical than it is at the moment as we move through this pandemic. I also believe at the moment that we're going to be living with viruses like this for a considerable period of time. So we need to build up a form of resilience in ourselves. And strategic resilience is not about responding to a one-time crisis, and it's not about rebounding from a setback, which is probably what we're all doing at the moment, right? But it's about continuously observing the environment and trying to anticipate and adjust to deep secular trends that are happening. And we could say the virus is one of them at the moment, so that we build in the capacity to change before the case for change becomes desperately obvious. So as you reflect on what has happened over the last number of months, I have no doubt you will be aware of changes that need to be made in nursing, or particular issues that you need organisation to resolve in order for you to perform your role to the fullest as we face into further episodes of this virus. And that's about developing strategic resilience in yourself and making the case for these things before we're hit with a further crisis of the nature we're dealing with at the moment. And I want to finish by assuring you that nurses will bridge the gap between access and coverage. Nurses and midwives will coordinate increasingly complex care. We will fulfill our potential as primary caregivers to the full extent of our education and training. We will enable the full economic value of our contribution across care settings to be realised, and we will change the reference point from which nursing is being judged. And we will do that because we have confidence that our profession is mature, competent, and creative enough to be a leader in this new reality. We are confident that we can rethink the strengths of our profession to ensure viability in this new reality which is dawning, and we will always envision a new way of being as a nursing profession in this new reality. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts with you.